Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
This the monster from the swamps, Regis Rougarou Program.
Hey, what's up? This is King Carlos Molina, former IBF world champ.
This is Michael, the Bounty Hunter, 2012 Olympian and your people's champ.
This is Charlie Edwards, flyweight champion of the world.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Kostya.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 354 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host Joey Kostya. I'm joined as ever by former heavyweight world title challenger Mr. Fast Eddie Chambers. Eddie, how you doing this week, my man?
I'm doing good, my man. How about you?
Always good when speaking with you. We're going to dive straight into the review part of the show as always. Then our special guest will be former world champion David Diaz. And then, of course, part two with the preview part and the news. Let's start with the review part. Like I said, we're going to start here in the States at the Grand Casino in Hinckley, Minnesota, USA. A Saturday night / Sunday early hours card in the UK. It was live on ESPN Plus. It was on Sky Sports Live as well. Let's start with the undercard first. Guido Vianello, the Italian heavyweight, with a knockout win against Rafael Rios, who's now 11-4. Vianello now 9-0 with a draw. He gets a knockout win every time he wins a fight. Of course, that one minor blemish, the draw, obviously went the distance. But other than that, 9 wins, all by knockout. I think that means Rafael Rios has been knocked out twice in a row now. So bad stuff for him. Gabriel Flores with a win as well. With a loss actually. Giovanni Cabrera with the win, now 21-0. A unanimous decision over 10 rounds against Gabe Flores Jr., who's now 21-2. If I'm not mistaken, I think Gabe Flores was down in the first round, I believe it was. Hope I'm not confusing him with anyone else. And let's just jump straight to the main event. Isaac Dogboe, friend of the show, now 24-2, former world champion, of course. This one was for the WBO International Featherweight title. He was able to beat on a split decision over 10 rounds Joet Gonzalez, 25-3, his record now. Tim Cheatham, 96-94 for Dogboe. Patrick Morley, 96-94 for Joet Gonzalez, and then Mike Fitzgerald, 96-94 for Isaac Dogboe. So all three judges, 2 had the exact same card, the other one had it 6 rounds to 4 the other way round, but still very close scorecards. Like I say, 6-4, 6-4, and then 4-6. So very close. It's what we want to see, and it was a really close fight. My analysis, I'm going to fly through this really quick. It's going to be a very quick review part of the show. The first round I gave to Isaac Dogboe. I felt he was bringing the fight to the bigger man. He landed a nice right hand as well with about 10 seconds to go in that first round. Round 2 I felt was a really close round. It could have gone either way. Round 3 I gave to Dogboe. I felt Gonzalez was having trouble with Dogboe's hand speed. Dogboe was throwing in combinations. He was going to the body well. Round 4 I gave to Gonzalez. I felt that Dogboe was a little less active compared to prior rounds. He took a good body shot as well earlier on in the round. It seemed to affect him and it spurred Gonzalez on. Round 5 I gave to Gonzalez. I felt it was a close one, but he landed more often and more meaningfully. Round 6 I gave to Gonzalez. So on my card, he was having a bit of a run here. Round 4, 5 and 6 I gave him. And I'm going to get on to round 7, which was really close. But round 6, like I say, Gonzalez as I say, starting to pile the pressure on. Rather than in the centre of the ring, I felt that Dogboe found his back on the ropes many times in that 6th round. Gonzalez putting the pressure on. Round 7, close round, could have gone either way. So again, it's a good turning point, I guess, for Gonzalez now. 3 or 4 rounds that he's either won or it's been very close. And then round 8, I gave to Dogboe. Round 9 I gave to Dogbe, but it was a very close round, could have gone either way. And then round 10 was another really close round that could have gone either way. So on my card, it was almost as if, I think the commentators actually said it as well. Like they agreed with me pretty much. Dogbe started early, Gonzalez came into the fight in the mid-rounds, and then the last few rounds were really, really close. Like I say, I gave round 8 to Dogbe, round 9 to Dogbe just, and then round 10 was a very close round. So it was a really, really close fight. It definitely was a 6-4 type of fight or a 5-5. I think 7-3 might be a little bit it would be a misrepresentation of the fight. It was really close. So if anyone had it 7-3, that one's a bit harder to kind of take in. But 6-4 I can see. 6-4 either way I can see. It was a really, really close fight. Really happy for Isaac Dogbe. He was a 2-1 underdog. We all know he's a really, really nice guy. Spoke to him briefly on the Friday night. Wished him all the best. And maybe we'll get him on the show maybe next week or the week after, or maybe not at all. But yeah, really nice guy. Happy to see him win. And his career needed it. He needed a big win. This is a good win here against, a former title challenger. And hopefully this win puts him in a position for a big fight at featherweight, his new weight division. Moving out now to the Embassy Suites in Nashville, Tennessee over here. It wasn't on TV, but let's just mention it. Friend of the show, Big Baby Jarrell Miller, now 25-0 with a draw. A TKO in round 4 against Derek Cardenas, who's now 8-10. That was pretty much expected. By the way, Jarrell Big Baby Miller has seemed to have lost about 13 pounds, which is good, but we want to see him lose a bit more. He weighed in at 328 pounds there. In Tennessee. Anyway, that wraps up the review part of the show. It was really brief. Let's now welcome our special guest on this week's podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the former WBC Lightweight World Champion. It is, of course, Mr. David Diaz. David, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you so much, man. How you been?
I've been really well, man. I'm doing even better now I'm speaking with you. My first question for you, David, first things first. I like to start these interviews the same way that I start all interviews like this that I do. Where did your boxing journey begin? What's your earliest memory of first ever putting on a pair of gloves, David?
My earliest memory is me going to the gym. Well, my dad taking me to the boxing gym. There's Park Districts. We have Park Districts here, and he took me into Wells Park, and I ended up my first day there. The first day I walk into, and I talk to the coach. I tell him, hey, I want to join boxing. He's like, you do? And I'm like, yeah. And he threw me in the ring right away. I started sparring, and he seen that I didn't give up and wasn't scared of getting hit. He's like, okay, I'll train you. And that was my introduction into boxing. But I, as a little kid, my parents and my brothers and sisters tell me that I was always the kind of kid that if you tell them, hey, go fight, that I would go fight. So I guess it was nothing new to me.
Excellent, man. I love that. I love the way that, your father took you to the gym. You were kind of thrown in the deep end instantly. And
yes.
It sounds like you took to it like a duck to water. So that's great, man.
Yeah. I'm not gonna tell it. I'm not gonna sit here and say, oh yeah, I beat up the kid. No, I didn't. I think the kid actually beat me up, but I was like, okay, it's one of those things where I was like, I'm gonna get you back, and that's what it was. Yeah,
you weren't disheartened.
No.
You were a very good amateur as well when you, of course, started competing. You won the Chicago Golden Gloves 4 times. You won the National Golden Gloves 3 times, I believe it was. You went to the Olympics in '96. You had almost 200 amateur fights. What was your favourite moment of your entire amateur career, David?
Being an Olympian, being able to tell my kids and my family that I was an Olympian. That was, to be honest with you, that was my goal in fighting. I never. You always see yourself as, okay, yeah, maybe I'll be a world champion. But as a young kid, the Olympics was the point for me that I wanted to reach. Professional came afterwards because now you're grown up. You already know what comes after an Olympics. You know, money and fame and all that stuff. But at the beginning, when I was first starting off, I really wanted to be an Olympian, and I was able to accomplish that.
Yeah, obviously the pinnacle of the amateur game. Getting on to your pro career now, David. You made your pro debut November 30th, 1996 in Albuquerque, New Mexico, on a Johnny Tapia undercard. Also on the undercard that night, a man who was 1-0 by the name of Floyd Mayweather Jr. That's for the statisticians there. But that night, as I say, you turned pro with a points win over 4 rounds against an undefeated fighter, 2-0, Marcos Antonio Rodriguez. Not often do we see guys turn pro and fight an undefeated fighter in their first fight, even if it was only 2-0. Tell me what you remember of your pro debut, David.
Well, it was a Johnny Tapia undercard. I was actually able, in my first pro fight, able to meet the legendary Alexis Arguello. I was able to introduce my dad to him because my dad was a fan of him and liked the way he fought. So my dad was able to meet Alexis Arguello. And, you know, the first pro fight was a scary one in the sense. I knew I was going against a guy who was 2-0, obviously also had a good amateur career, and we ended up winning. I wanted the knockout, but we didn't end up getting the knockout. The guy was pretty tall and tough, and we edged out a win. That's what I remember of my fight, my first pro fight.
And I want to jump forward now in my virtual time machine here to your 22nd pro fight. It was against, I just want to touch on this just briefly, it was against Emmanuel Augustus. Obviously the drunken master, such a puzzle, didn't have the prettiest record, but was always asking questions of everyone he fought. What was that experience like? Because, I mean, there's almost no way of preparing for someone as unorthodox as he was.
Correct. You know, and to be honest with you, he did not, from what I remember of the fight, he did not do any of that slick stuff that, you know, he does, bouncing around and stuff like that. We actually fought a good fight. It was a learning experience, and it was almost like, how can you say this? Like, he was like the gatekeeper to my success in the sense of moving. If we beat this guy, we're able to go up in competition and go and fight other good fighters. Not saying that he was anything less, but he was someone that was that gave everybody a good fight, you know. And then after that, people ended up being successful. So I felt that I was able to do the same thing.
Yeah, you beat him unanimously over 8 rounds. The next fight after that, so we're going to jump to that one. May 15th, 2004. At this point, of course, you're 23-0. You box in Chicago, Illinois against former WBO super lightweight world champion Julio. You managed to stop him in the 10th and final round. No one ever stopped him before that or after that in his whole entire career. It was only you.
Look at that.
That's what I'm saying, baby. It's beautiful.
I never knew that.
But tell me.
I never knew that.
That's what I mean. I've done plenty of these interviews. I tell guys stuff about themselves that even they didn't know. That's a little accomplishment for myself. We'll carry on. Tell me what you can remember, David, about that fight, because at that time it was certainly the biggest win of your career at that stage.
Yes, it was. We knew we were fighting a former world champion, and to be honest, it was a tough fight. I remember that fight being a tough fight, and also because he ended up giving me a nasty uppercut, and he caught me with my mouth open. So he hit my upper teeth, and once I went back to the corner, my manager, Jim Strickland, who rest in peace, tried to pull the mouthpiece out of my mouth, and I was like, no, don't touch me. I can't. It hurts. He's like, okay. So I think that was in the 5th or 6th round that happened, and I had to fight like that for the rest of the fight, with my mouthpiece on all the time, not taking it off to get a breath. But we ended up stopping him, and our energy and our strength was, we knew we could do that, so we ended up doing it.
Yeah, it was a great win at the time, of course. After beating Julio, you racked up another 2 wins before stepping in with future WBO super lightweight world champion Kendall Holt. The fight takes place in Connecticut, Friday, February 4th, 2005. You were down in round 1, he was down in round 7. You were then stopped in round 8. There's an argument that the stoppage from the referee was premature. You were also quite a way behind on the cards, but tell me about that fight and how it felt to lose for your first, for the first time as a pro against Kendall.
Because it was stopped like the way it was, I wasn't even on the ground. I wasn't like bleeding or anything like that. The ref just stopped the fight because I guess Kendall Holt threw a right hand and caught me and snapped my head back, and I guess the referee thought that was enough. But as you've seen in my fights and in my losses, man, I go out on my shield, man, and that was no way to stop that fight. I honestly felt that I was coming back on him, and I felt that we were getting him. We were getting really close to stopping him. And I don't know. You know how it is with boxing, and when you go to people's backyards, so to speak, sometimes you got to do extra special stuff to get it done. I honestly felt that fight shouldn't have been stopped. I could have gone the distance and I don't know, probably ended up stopping him, but shoulda, coulda, didn't. So it's what it is. It was my first loss, my first stoppage, so to speak, and we had to deal with that.
Yeah, and as you say, you felt you were getting closer. I mean, as I had said before, you stopped him in the you dropped him in the round before that stoppage. So you're probably onto something there. After the loss to Kendall Holt in February of that year, which that was when the fight was in February of that particular year, you still had another 4 fights before the year was out. You got a win over Tyrone Wiggins, then John Trigg, then a win over former IBF super flyweight world champion Juan Polo Perez, then the draw against Ramaz Paliani. Let's talk about those 2 fights there just briefly, David, starting with that win over Perez, obviously a former champion, few weights below though. But tell me about that one, and then this strange draw against Paliani.
Well, the previous, the one you said first, what's his name?
Juan Polo Perez, yeah.
Juan Polo Perez. He was a nice little difficult fight, man. It was that one was at Aragon, correct?
It was in Missouri, if I'm not mistaken.
In Missouri. Oh, okay. No, that I was thinking about another one. All right. Well, I don't remember that one. I'm sorry. But I do remember the one I had in Indiana with that draw, my only draw.
Yeah.
There was no way that was a draw, man. There was no way that was a draw. I just don't understand what the judges seen that fight. We were on him. Was it close? No. Was it close? I thought I won the fight, and they just didn't see it that way. And I was, in shock, because even the crowd was booing it, and I don't think it was a draw.
Yeah, it's a strange one, because those 2 fights I mentioned there, obviously, you say you forgot about the fight against the former champion super flyweight Juan Polo Perez. He ended up retiring, by the way, with a record of 46-46 with 4 draws. But getting on to the draw, Ramaz Paliani, such a strange one, because this is a guy who, when you fought him, he was 11-0. He was a 3-time Olympian. So really good amateur. And then he draws with you, and the judges had it 114, 114 twice, and 115, 113 actually in favour to him. And then he ended up retiring within a year of drawing with you. He only had 16 pro fights. I'm not sure where he's ended up. But anyways, moving on. Moving on. After that,
can you account that one to me retiring him?
Hey, well, I say he did have a couple fights in that time.
Okay, then I guess I did it.
Yeah, he had 3 wins, but his last fight he got stopped against a guy who I've never heard of the guy, so I'm not sure. But maybe, you never know. But maybe. After that Paliani fight, you gather another 2 wins, both by unanimous decision. The first against Silverio Ortiz and the second against Christian Favela. This then leads us into August 12th, 2006 at the Thomas & Mack Center in Las Vegas. You boxed for the interim WBC Lightweight World title against Jose Armando Santa Cruz. You were losing the fight on all 3 scorecards, David. You needed a knockout to win. You got it in round 10, which is not the first time you've got a big stoppage in round 10. Tell me what you can remember about that night there. A real special one, of course.
Well, it was a special night. It was an awesome night. It was our first title fight, right? But granted, it was an interim title, but it was a championship fight nonetheless, and we were very proud to get that call and be able to fight for that title. The fight in itself, we felt that we were. How can I say it? We felt that before the fight that we were going to beat him, obviously, because any fighter who goes into a fight thinking that he's not going to win shouldn't be in the game to begin with. All right? So I knew we were going to win, but it just turns out that he was very good at distancing himself. Sometimes he came in and we went blow for blow. But when I went back to the corner, my coach told me, he goes, hey, man, he's like, we need a knockout. He's like, we're losing, and we need a knockout. I'm not going to say that, I went and I knocked him out because he told me to. No. We caught him with an uppercut, I seen him throwing his jab, and I threw that uppercut, and I seen that it staggered him, and that's when I went on him. Like another life. I got rejuvenated, and I didn't feel tired anymore. I didn't feel like I couldn't get to him, and we ended up putting it on him, and we ended up stopping him.
Yeah, no, like I say, another excellent win, and the crazy thing is that after this, obviously, you win the interim title. The champion at the time, the full champion, was of course the late Diego Corrales. He was scheduled to fight Casamayor in what would be their third fight. Obviously, Corrales failed to make the weight. He was stripped to the title on the scales, meaning Casamayor was he was eligible to win the title. Casamayor won the title. Then Casamayor gets stripped for not fighting you. You were his mandatory. He instead tried to fight Freitas, which never ended up happening.
Correct.
So he kind of vacated the title for nothing in the end, but it is what it is. You were then upgraded to full champion. Your title was on the line for your first defense, and that first defense, of course, takes place in Rosemont, Illinois. You're coming off a year layoff. The date, though, August 4th, 2007, HBO pay-per-view. You boxed the 3-weight world champion at the time. He went on to be a 4-weight world champion, of course, the living legend himself, Mr. Eric Morales. You win the fight by unanimous decision over 12 rounds. Just tell me about it, man. What an excellent name to have on your resume in the win column. And for those people out there that like to say, hey, he won an interim title, he got upgraded kind of thing, this is the kind of name they want to see on your record, and you got it straight away in your first defense.
Yes. So back to when you said that I had won Chicago Golden Glove champions. Chicago used to have their championship fights at the Rosemont Horizon, which is now the Allstate Arena. So my first Chicago Golden Gloves fight was in the Rosemont Horizon, the Allstate Arena. And I remember myself, man, just in awe of the place and being able to fight there. So for me to be able to do that again, this time for a championship fight in Chicago, was something surreal and a dream come true, you know? Something that you just dream about. We had a lot of family, friends there, people that were able to go see the fight. So I was charged up because of that. But again, to be able to bring Chicago a championship fight and also become a champion again, it was one of the highlights of my career. And again, to fight Eric Morales, you said it, a living legend, somebody that gave us great fights throughout his career. It was a close fight. Now everybody can say, yeah, well, if you would have caught him in his early years, you wouldn't have lasted. Probably not, right? But we didn't. We're not in the what if games. We're in the what happened today. And at that time and moment, that's what happened, and we ended up becoming a world champion again.
And tell me, David, at what moment did you celebrate, becoming a world champion? Was it after winning the interim title, after being upgraded to full WBC champion despite not physically fighting for the belt, or when you beat Morales in that kind of first defense?
When I beat Morales, that's when I knew I had become a world champ.
How crazy were the celebrations, if you can remember?
Oh, it was crazy. It was. You know what? I didn't have no entourage. I didn't have nothing. I had my family. I've always just had my family with me. So it wasn't like a big celebration after like a big party or anything like that. We came back home to my sister's house and we all just hung out there, and we were just in shock and awe, happy, celebrating the victory.
Excellent, man. Excellent. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. If you were carrying on, I was just
No.
Okay.
It was that. It was just that we just kept it the way we got there. I mean, with the people that helped me get there, family, friends, and that's it. Nobody else.
No, that's excellent, man. And the next fight after that Morales fight was actually a non-title fight on the Pacquiao Marquez 2 undercard against Ramon Montano. You won the fight by majority decision after 10. I can't remember now, but if you can, how come your title wasn't on the line for that fight there, David? Why wasn't it in defense?
I have no idea, but I guess it was just to try to secure the fight with Pacquiao.
Okay.
I'm like, listen, man, let's do it. Whatever happens, happens. But they're like, no, we're just going to do a 10-rounder and call it a day and go through it. Okay. I was like, all right, man. So it fell in line.
Okay, well, there we go. That brings us in smoothly to that next fight, as you mentioned, June 28th, 2008 at the Mandalay Bay in Vegas. Your second defense of your WBC Lightweight World title. You get in there with another living legend, the eventual 8-weight world champion, Manny Pacquiao. Now, at that time, Pacquiao was, I'd say, probably at his peak, to be honest. Unfortunately, for you were stopped in round 9, your title taken away by Manny. Tell me about that fight, which I'm guessing is not your happiest career memory looking back now.
No, well, I mean, you know what? It's one of these things, right?
Bittersweet.
I think at the time I was already 32, if I'm not mistaken. Was I?
I
think I was. I think I was. The thing is that I was already age, you know. I'm not saying that's an excuse. What I'm saying is that I didn't have no more time to wait to catch Manny Pacquiao later on down the road. You know, like to get more experience, to get the feeling of bigger fights and stuff like that, or to even get more, try to prepare more for him. The opportunity came to fight Manny Pacquiao. He had already beaten Eric Morales, Marco Antonio Barrera, Juan Manuel Marquez twice. So, you know what? I felt like I was the guy. I was the guy that was going to put a stop to it. You know, of him beating Mexican fighters. I consider myself a Mexican American, but I felt that I could stop him. That I would be the one that puts an end to his run on beating up Mexicans. But you know, it turned out differently than what I thought, because I actually thought that, you know what, I fought fast guys before. This guy's not going to be a problem. But I was mistaken, man. His speed was one of the things that I couldn't do. The power punches were not that hard. They weren't hard. Now people are going to say, oh, yeah, but you got knocked out. I was like, yeah, because of the accumulation of punches, you know, that ended up happening. That's how I got knocked out. The punch that I didn't see knocked me out, and that was it, you know. But like I said, I always felt that I knew that I could beat him. I felt that in my heart, that I had that confidence in me to go in there and beat him.
Yeah, and like I say, I mean, that was probably him in his peak, because that was before that crazy run he went on. Obviously, I mean, he'd beaten Marquez, as you mentioned, in the fight before that, but he beat you. He goes on to obviously beat De La Hoya, Ricky Hatton, Miguel Cotto, Josh Clottey, Margarito, Mosley, Marquez again. It was just such a run. After the Pacquiao fight, you were inactive for about 15 months before coming back and getting in with former two-weight world champion Jesus Chavez. Now, this one takes place September 26, 2009 in Chicago. You were able to win a majority decision over 10. Do you remember much about that one, David? Another good win.
That was a tough fight. That's actually Jesus Sandoval is a great friend of mine. You know, he was actually from Chicago. He was a little bit before me, but I know him, and we are good friends. He's a great champion. We go back and forth, and he says that he won the fight, and I said, no, I won the fight, the judges. So he's like, yeah, but you're from Chicago. I was like, Jesus, man, you're from Chicago too, dude. Don't put that up there, you know. And so it's one of those things, you know. But my most respect, I thank him every time. Thank you for sharing the ring with me, because he is a living legend as well for us here in Chicago and in the boxing community. So to Jesus Chavez, I mean, we great friends, and he's a good guy.
Yeah, no, certainly, and he doesn't get mentioned as much as I think he should, because he was a really good fighter.
No, yes, he was. He was a really good fighter.
Yeah. And 6 months after that, you boxed at the Cowboys Stadium in Arlington, Texas for the vacant WBC Lightweight World title against former WBC Super Featherweight World Champion Humberto Soto. Now, you and Humberto had been on the same cards in the past, but this time, obviously, you were fighting each other. This one, again, is part of the Pacquiao-Clottey undercard. You'd ultimately lose wide on points over 12. Tell me what you remember about that one. And obviously, Humberto, he had such a up-and-down career. You never knew which version of him would turn up on the night.
Yeah, so I honestly don't know what happened. I think it was the beginning of the end for me. Even after the fight, I was like, man, I started telling my coaches, you know, I saw openings, but I didn't take advantage of them. I was sometimes hesitant, having that confidence or that fierceness of me going in there and taking and hitting them. You know, I was second guessing myself, and I started thinking maybe it was time. You know, but this is after the fight. You know, I couldn't. I was talking to my coaches and letting them know about that I seen the openings, but I didn't pull the trigger, so to speak. And they were like, no, just take your time. It's probably just something that you would just not your fight, not your day. It's probably one of those things. So I took it like that. I took a couple of days off, couple months off, and then we ended up going back at it.
Yeah, we did. or you did, I should say. 10 months later in Chicago, Illinois, you boxed Robert Frankel. You beat him by majority decision over 10, January of 2011. And then, of course, your final career fight takes place 7 months after that in Hammond, Indiana. You box lightweight contender Hank Lundy. You end up getting stopped in round 6. Of course, you then made the decision to retire from boxing with a highly respectable record, 36-4, with that one single draw. And more importantly, a fantastic resume with all those names mentioned as well. Obviously, in particular, 2 all-time greats in there. You beat one of them, you lost to the other guy. Tell me, David, did you ever get itchy knuckles, as they say, and want to fight again, want to come back at any point, or no?
Never. No, I don't. When I gave it up, I knew I was done. And I'm going to tell you how I knew I was done. After the Hank Lundy fight, in the dressing room, I was mad because I was beating him. I almost stopped him. And he ended up headbutting me, and the ref didn't see it. He said it was a punch, so I had to knock him out, or he was going to knock me out, one or the other. But in the dressing room, when everybody leaves you alone, you're down by yourself and thinking and contemplating. So my thought was like, you know what I'm going to do? I was mad. I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm gonna go to Philadelphia, and I'm going to get me a rematch with Hank Lundy. I'm going to fight him in his hometown. I don't care where it's at. I'm going to fight him, and I'm going to beat him. I'm going to knock his ass out. And I'm there. This is going through my head, and I'm thinking about it, talking to myself. And then I say, okay, because I think it was a Friday night when we had the fight. And then I was like, all right, we're going to get back into the ring. Back into training on Monday. On Monday, I'm going to start back up and start running and start doing what I need to do. That's when my body said, hold on, wait a minute, David, let's talk about this. I think you're dumb, buddy. And that's when I realized that I said, yeah, I think I'm done. I'm not gonna get up on Monday and go run. I'm tired. My body was telling me that I was tired. So I went home. I didn't tell nobody. And then a couple of months later, I really knew it because there was no urge in me to get back up, go run, wake up in the morning, go run, diet, go to the gym, work out. There was nothing. I was done. So that's why I knew that it was time to hang him up. Could I have done fights in England, fights in Mexico and stuff like that? Yeah, and try to make money, more money? Yes, I could have done it. But for what? I have kids that my kids are now that I'm able to spend time with them and have a conversation with them. What if I would have taken a fight that I shouldn't have taken, and then I wouldn't be able to communicate well with my kids or my wife? I knew I was done. I knew it was time to hang them up and let them go because I did not want to work out anymore. I was done.
And it's good to hear you say that, you knew you were done, because that's the thing. So many fighters I've spoken to in the past, they didn't know they were done, or they thought they were done, and then they go back on that decision. And obviously, you've just pretty much spoken for me what I'm going to say now. But the dangers of coming back just for the money, obviously, it's far too risky. This is a dangerous sport.
Oh yeah.
And it sounds like you knew.
And I
when
don't
the
want
time
my
was right.
kids. And I didn't want. I've always said this. I didn't want my kids to be embarrassed of me when they introduce me to their friends or their girlfriends or somebody that they know, and I be like not being able to have a conversation or be thinking right or something like that. I wanted to be able to enjoy my kids, and right now, by the grace of God, I'm able to do that. My boys play baseball, and I'm able to go to each of their games and cheer them on and have a good time, and still be able to communicate with them, because I've seen it where some fighters, they take it too long and it doesn't end well for them.
Yeah. James Toney springs to mind when you say things like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got a few kind of not quick fire questions, but just very simple questions, just based on your boxing career that I want to go over. David, who springs to mind when I ask you who's the hardest puncher you ever shared a ring with?
Rangel, Jaime Rangel.
Wow.
Jaime Rangel, Colombian guy. I fought him. It was a dark show in the Aragon. We fought. Oh my God, this guy was like, he had muscles all over the place, and he was. That's when I believe I first went down to 135. I was like, how the hell is he 135 and he's got all these muscles, and I'm 135 and I'm dehydrated, you know, and I'm like walking around pale. And boy, did he hit hard. He hit hard.
Yeah, certainly. Them Colombians, they all seem to be good punchers for some reason. The next question: what was your personal favorite win of all those wins on your record, all 36?
Out of all, as much as I think back, it's the Morales fight.
Yeah,
it's the Morales fight. I'm home, able to bring that to Chicago. My family, my friends. I mean, in the place where I fought, you know, as a kid, it's definitely the Morales fight. The more I get older, the more I realize what a great event that was. What I brought to Chicago, a championship fight. You know, a kid being raised in Chicago to be able to bring a championship fight to Chicago. It's hasn't been done since or before. There was always fights here. There was always fights. Chicago was always a big boxing town, but it was most of the time other people that came in here to fight. But if you really think about it, for me, I think about it and I'm like, man, you know what? A born and raised kid from Chicago became a world champion and had a world championship fight in, well, technically Rosemont Horizon, but we claim that as Chicago sometimes, you know. But it's, you know, it's in the city, you know. I mean, and it's Chicago, so I don't know. That's the one that I remember and I love the most.
Yeah, it has to be that one. I mean, obviously Morales at the time, you know, he already had such an amazing resume. Obviously, I think he had about 53 fights by that time, so it's not like he was a 25-year-old kid. But he did, 4 years after you beat him, he wins another world title, so he certainly wasn't done either. So
he still has something left in the tank.
Yeah, more than something for sure. And I want to ask you as well, who was the best all-round fighter that you ever shared a ring with? And I want to kind of take this into two and say, in a fight and in sparring.
Ooh, I'm gonna split it up there. I have to. There's no questions about it. Obviously, in a fight, it's the man himself, Pacquiao. You know, I mean, I've never been. I can't put somebody else over Pacquiao when I have shared the ring with Pacquiao. Yeah. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because of what he did and what he did to me, obviously. I had never been in something like that, an experience like that, a fight like that, or fight somebody like that, Pacquiao. Now, in sparring, I ended up going to Australia for about a month, and I ended up sparring Kostya Tszyu.
Ooh, okay.
Yes, sir. Yeah, and I did pretty well, but I didn't do good enough. You know, and that guy can hit. Oh my goodness. Yes, he can. Yes, he can. Yeah. You know, but Kostya Tszyu, I mean, that's when also I knew I was going to go places, because you're fighting a world champion. I mean, guy's a monster, and you're able to do okay. Not great, but okay. I was like, you know what? I can hang with him. I'll be able to be okay with my career. I felt that confident.
Yeah, no, that's a lot of people take confidence from things like that, and no, it's brilliant. I love hearing about sparring and stuff that people don't necessarily know about. Is there anyone, David, that you wish that you could have had the chance to fight in a realistic world? I mean, like a guy. I don't want you to say, yeah, I wish I had a fight with Sugar Ray Robinson, but I mean, like, is there anyone that you wish you could have fought that was around in the same era as yourself? That didn't happen?
The Diazes. You know, I don't know if you remember, but there was a lot of Diazes around that time, and lightweights that were champion. They were named Diazes. So it was Juan Diaz from Houston, who was a world champion, and then
he's been on the show before.
I forgot the other guy's name. It was Julio Diaz. I think it was Julio Diaz.
Yeah.
Julio Diaz from California. So at that time, I was like, man, that would be cool if we all get into a Diaz match and see who's the Diaz number one. But it just, got sidetracked, never happened. And I think that would have been cool. Now, not a lot of fans will remember. Some of them do, some of them don't. But I think that would have been, like, cool at least for me.
Yeah, I've had Juan Diaz on the show in the past. Haven't had.
Oh, he's
Julio
a great guy.
Yeah,
he's a great guy.
He's doing well with his. I think he's got a trucking business now, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, he does.
Yeah,
he's does.
Doing well
yes,
with that.
he does.
That's good. It's good to see him have something after boxing. What was I going to say? Edwin Valero, wasn't he around the same kind of time?
Yes. Yeah. Well, Edwin Valero. I heard of Edwin Valero until after I fought Pacquiao, because he was trying to fight him, and I ended up meeting Edwin Valero in the Philippines because I went to Manny's birthday.
Wow, tell me about that. Wow.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, man, that guy was something. Man. I was able to have conversations with him, and if his stories check out, I mean, I didn't know him, right? But for some strange reason, he confided me in some stuff of his childhood, of what he went through and stuff like that. And he went through a lot of stuff. It was unreal to what he was able to do besides the circumstances he had, And with me, he was a cool person with me, man. I cannot say anything bad about him. We had a good time, enjoyed ourselves, talked a little crap, just like hanging out, And that was me the first time ever meeting him, And it was just one of those things that, like, when you hear about what happened, you're like, okay, I get it now. And then it's like it's such a waste of talent that he had and fighting. You see his fights, and it was just a man that was lost with his demons, man. Fighting with his, not lost, but fighting the demons that he had. And it was unfortunate for the kids he left behind. He left the mother and without a father. And now, unfortunately, what happened to him afterwards and what he did. I'm being honest. I didn't know of him up until after Pacquiao fight, that I was able to meet him and talk to him and find out about his record. I was like, holy shit, 24-0, first round knockouts. Wow. Then I was like, all right, who you fighting? No,
Wow.
But yeah, it was one of those things that I met him over there, spent time, and then I think it was like maybe 4 months later, 5 months later, the tragedy that happened.
It's crazy. It really is. I mean, there has to be. It's kind of irrelevant to our conversation today, but there has to be made a documentary about this guy's life. I mean, the upbringing, the fights themselves, and then obviously how it ends. It's a Hollywood movie, but it actually happened. It's obviously terrible the way things ended.
He told me some crazy things that, it was unreal. I was like, get out of here, crazy. He said, no, yeah, that's what I did. I was like, okay, I understand. Then
How
when
crazy are we talking, David? Something you can't divulge?
not at the moment. No,
That's fine,
I mean
that's
it's yeah.
It's
No, it's
personal.
I mean, what do you expect a kid who? This is what he told me. He's out there in the streets since he was like 10 years old. He was out in the streets 10-year-old. What does a kid 10-year-old do out in the streets, man? Steal, fight, do all kinds of crazy stuff. Get into trouble, without anybody supervising him. This is his words. That's what he said, And again, I'm from Chicago, so I've seen some crazy shit. But the stuff that he was telling me, I was like, come on, man. Yeah, that's how it was. That's how it is in my country, he says.
Wow.
Like, oh, man, all right. I understand that. And then when everything happened, then you start understanding, okay, I guess he did have some demons, man.
Yeah.
Some demons he was fighting.
Yeah, for sure. But no, moving on from that, I asked this question to everyone that I do this kind of interview with, where we go over your career, and I like to hear, the answer that I like to hear to this question is, no, I have none, but you may not say that. Do you have any regrets? If you could go back and change something in your boxing career, would you, or are you satisfied with the way it all went?
I'm satisfied, but I just wish I would have been. But I wish I would have been champion just a little bit longer. That's my only regret.
Okay.
Just being champion a little bit longer. I just felt it was too short, in my opinion. For me, obviously, the people I fought and the person I fought, they took it away. No questions asked. But if when I was champion, I would have been a little bit smarter and been like, yeah, you know what, maybe it's not right. Now you start thinking about it. But this is the card I played, and that I don't regret. I don't regret fighting Manny Pacquiao. I don't get me wrong. Because, like I said before, as a champion, as a fighter, you shouldn't be afraid of nobody. You shouldn't be like, hey, I'm the champion. I could beat anybody because I am a champion. But if I would have been a little bit more smarter, I guess, in my preparation or my thought process to the fight, maybe it would have been a different outcome, or maybe it would have been the same. But, it's what it is.
And I want to ask you this. I already know the answer to this, of course, but just for the listeners, what are you up to these days? What keeps you busy these days, 2022, David?
2022, my kids, obviously, with my kids getting busy, high school and baseball, they love baseball, but also my business. I have a real estate business here in Chicago. It's called Main Event Real Estate Group. Obviously, Main Event because of boxing. So we use that, and that's what I do right now. Help people find homes, purchase them, sell them, and I also have a couple of investors that I help out and help them locate properties that could be beneficial for them and finance-wise and rentals and stuff like that. So it's definitely in a wide variety of spectrum in the real estate game. Never thought I would be doing that after boxing, but if you look at me, here I am.
And that's what I was going to say. It's such a random career change. How did you get into it in the first place? And do you enjoy it anywhere near how much you enjoyed boxing?
Actually, I do. I do enjoy it because there's a satisfaction of me finding people their homes or selling their homes for top dollars and how it is in the market now, and they get very happy, or being able to help people purchase it. And they never had the thought or the possibilities. And when they tell you that that's what they want, and we were able to help them in the process, it's really gratifying. It's gratifying and it's a great business.
Oh, fabulous, man. So you're not involved in boxing in any capacity at all nowadays?
At this moment, I'm not. I was before the pandemic. I was involved. I was working for Cicero Boxing Gym, Cicero town, a town right outside Chicago, and we had a boxing program that we were running for the last 10 years. It was almost 10 years I did that after boxing, and but then with the pandemic, the hours and stuff didn't just it didn't fit with what I was doing with real estate. Yeah. Money wise, it wasn't giving me a lot of money. It wasn't, it wasn't even paying the bill. To be honest with you, I was doing it because I loved it and it was fun. But then when the real estate picked up for us, there was no time. I couldn't do it 100% because I would always be out there showing people houses or having meetings or getting things together to wrap it up. So it was better for me to just hand it off to somebody else and let them run it.
Yeah, no, I understand that completely. And now for probably the most important question of the entire interview, David. 2022. Are you a happy man when you look back on your boxing career? I know you had a small minor regret, but you've achieved amazing things. You're in the record books. You've now got this new job. You've got life after boxing, which a lot of boxers don't have. You're enjoying the job. You've got your health, your faculties intact. You get to see your kids play baseball. Are you a happy man?
Yes, I am. I am. I'm happy because, unfortunately, my dad passed away a year ago.
Sorry to hear.
And I was able to give him the joy of his son becoming a champion. That for me was the most important thing in my boxing career. And after that, he was able to see my kids, my three boys, and they're growing up. They're not grown, but he left. He left this world knowing that I was okay. Yeah. And that man, for me, is my first best friend, And I did it all for him. My boxing career, everything was for him. So I'm happy. I am very happy.
That's beautiful to hear, David, because like I say, I speak to a lot of guys. They're not so happy the way things have turned out for them. I'm really, really pleased to hear that you're happy. That's the most important thing. And also, thanks to you, your father got to meet Alexis Arguello. You didn't mention that.
Yes. And he got to meet everybody. I mean, but my first pro fight was Alexis Arguello. I was like, hey, Pop, look. He said, oh, my God, look. Then after that, we started meeting De La Hoya. We said, so like that, it just became how can I say, almost like, okay, yeah, I know who they are. It's not a big deal. My son's a boxer, too. So it was a great feeling, yeah.
Beautiful, man. My last real question for you, David, before we wrap it up, is a question that I'd get shouted at if I didn't ask it, but the UK listeners in particular love hearing the answer to this question. I'm putting you on the spot a little bit here. Favourite UK fighter, any era? Who springs to mind, my friend?
Oh, man. It's Calzaghe.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm going to go Haddon. I really like Haddon, man. Calzaghe. I'll go with Calzaghe. Great boxer.
Yeah. No, brilliant boxer, Calzaghe. A lot of people say Prince Nassim Hamed. That's a very popular one.
Yeah. But no, not with us. not with us. He was a little bit too cocky for me, dancing around, prancing around, and all that stuff. No, and then Barrera was the first guy to put a butt whooping on him. So.
And just finally, David, before we wrap it up, if you've got any closing words just to the listeners, if you want to close with a message or just anything that you want to say before we let you go, the floor is yours, my friend.
Joey, thank you so much for reaching out to me and having me on your radio show, on your podcast show. I really appreciate it. This is a little movie reel that we get in our head because you give us this interview to us to old timers now. You know, thank you for helping me relive my glorious moments. And you guys got a great guy here. Keep him safe.
I really appreciate that, David. Listen, man, it's been my pleasure walking down memory lane with you. Thank you so much for your time. Best of luck with the future, and I hope for sure that we can speak again someday.
Oh, definitely. Appreciate it.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. This part, of course, the news part of the show. We're going to start here with a card that's been announced for September 23rd. It goes down in Newark at the Prudential Center. Maybe you can get over there, Eddie. We shall see. We're going to see Shakur Stevenson defend his unified junior lightweight titles against former title challenger Robson Conceição. That's the guy who is Brazilian, and he arguably beat Oscar Valdez but didn't get the decision. I think maybe not his last fight. It might have been the one before that, but yeah. I'm happy that he gets an opportunity here against Stevenson. Obviously, Conceição was a really good amateur and stuff, but again, at this point in Shakur's career, he just looks closest to unbeatable as you possibly can be. We're going to see as well, in other news, Mickey Bay and Tevin Farmer finally get it on. It's now going down in Arizona on August 12th. This card was supposed to have been in Africa. Then it got moved to Dubai. Now it's been moved to Arizona. It's been all over the place. I'm surprised they haven't announced it at York Hall, Bethnal Green in London. It's been from continent to continent. I've never quite seen anything like it, really, but yeah, both guys getting in, both guys friends of the show, both guys former world champions, and all the best to both guys. May the best man win. Usyk Joshua, the undercard, Usyk Joshua 2, the undercard has been announced. Obviously, again, the date for that is August 20th in Saudi Arabia, but the undercard, let's run through it real quick here. We have Filip Hrgović, 14-0, 12 KOs. He gets in with Zhilei Zhang, 24-0, with a draw, 19 KOs. Cannot wait to see the odds on that one. I'm going to be backing a Hrgović knockout. I'll put my house on Hrgović to stop him. I mean, Zhang has been, has been kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Anyone could, not anyone could beat him, but there's loads of guys. He's there for the taking. There's loads of guys that could take him out, and Hrgović is going to absolutely walk through him, I think. In other news, we have we have Callum Smith getting in with Pacquiao Borderleek, who is a decent fighter. Again, of course, at light heavyweight, and Borderleek and Smith are getting it on here for it's a world title final eliminator. So the winner will be in line to take on Artur Beterbiev as it stands. So yeah, it's the WBC final eliminator there. All the best to Callum Smith, friend of the show. Ramla Ali gets in with Crystal Nova. That one I'm not too surprised about. We also get to see former two-weight world champion and friend of the show Badou Jack get in with the undefeated 21-0 with 16 KOs Richard Rivera. I'm not sure what Badou Jack's been doing of late, to be honest. He keeps having very meaningless fights, and this guy here, I haven't seen him fight, I don't think, but he is an undefeated fighter that, by looking at his record, suggests he can bang, and he is probably a fully fledged cruiserweight, whereas I don't think Badou Jack really is. I just can't quite understand how he's gone from, being a super middle right up to a cruiser. And I remember meeting him, and he's not that big, and I remember putting my arm around him, and I never forget how soft his body felt. He felt like a teddy bear, and I just can't imagine him bulking up to cruiserweight. And I don't know. I mean, he has done. I think he's already had 1 or 2 fights at the weight, but this should be a stiff test if this guy is a true cruiserweight. We also see Andrew Tabiti, 19-1, getting in with Tyrone Spong, who is 14-0, 13 KOs. That one there, by the way, is going to be a heavyweight. Andrew Tabiti, I swear he was wasn't he like a light heavy? I don't even think he was a cruiser. This is apparently a heavyweight. That's crazy.
No, Joe, he was a cruiser.
Tabiti was a cruiser, okay.
Yeah, he fought Steve Cunningham, I think, few years back. Maybe in 2017, I think. If I'm not mistaken.
Okay. Yeah, because Okay, yeah. Well, yeah, I remember him. I've always got him confused. Andrew Tabiti, I've always got him confused with another fighter whose name has disappeared from my brain. Yeah, I think it's Marcus Brown I confuse him with for some reason. And Marcus Brown's a light heavy. I think that's where I'm getting it from. Anyways, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see him up at heavyweight against this guy Tyrone Spong. It's over 8 rounds, 14-0, 13 KOs. Yeah, I don't even think I've seen him fight, to be honest with you. But anyways, whatever. That'll be interesting. I think the undercard seems a bit wild, actually. It's really random, and I like random stuff. And that's really it kind of for the bigger fights on the undercard. Elsewhere, we have another fight that's been announced. It's going to be September 3rd. Former world champion Liam Smith gets in with Hassan Mwakinyo, who some fight fans will remember. He came in at late notice and upset the odds by knocking out Sam Egginton a few years ago. But anyway, he's back over here, and it's going down in Liverpool, so it's a homecoming for Liam Smith at the M&S Bank Arena. Tickets start at just £40. It's quite a decent undercard as well, to be honest. A few names. We get to see John Doherty getting in with Diego Costa. We also see Adam Azim, the hot prospect, getting in again with, I don't think they've announced his opponent just yet actually, but he's on the card. Elsewhere on that card as well, we have Shakan Pitters getting in with Dan Aziz. What a brilliant fight that is as well. I love fights like that. An all-domestic cruiserweight affair. That's going to be good. Again, the date for that is September 3rd. And that's about it for the news, to be honest with you. We're now going to move on to the preview part of the show. We're going to start here on Saturday at the Bournemouth International Centre in Dorset, UK. Over here, let's run through the undercard first. We're going to see the silver medalist from the 2020 Olympics make his pro debut at light heavyweight, Ben Whittaker. Benzo, I think they call him Benzo, and I think the E is like a pound sign. It's a bit kind of confusing, but anyway, he makes his highly anticipated pro debut against Greg O'Neill, who's 6-6 with a draw. I think he's been banged out about 4 times of those 6, if I'm not mistaken. Talking of people getting banged out, we've got Joe Pigford, 19-0. I think he's probably got about 18 KOs. No opponent just yet for him. It's meant to be over 10 rounds for the WBO European Super Welterweight title. In other news, the sister of Daniel Dubois, Caroline Dubois, a really good amateur, 2-0 as a pro, 1 KO. She gets in with Happy Dowdy, who is 11-10 with a draw, been stopped a few times. Probably expect Dubois to get another stoppage here. That's over 6 2-minute rounds, like I say. Elsewhere on the card, Hassan Azim, 3-0, gets in with Jacob Quinn, who's 4-1. Fraser Clark as well, another big guy, obviously heavyweight, used to be quite a good amateur. Fraser Clark 1-0, no opponent just yet for him as it stands, and also a couple of other guys on the bill as well. But the main event, Chris Billam-Smith 15-1, gets in with Isaac Chamberlain 14-1. It's over 12 rounds there for the Commonwealth and European Boxing Union cruiserweight title, so the proper EBU European title and the Commonwealth there. Great fight. Chris Billam-Smith, quite a big favourite. I can understand why. I think he's been more active and he's been in bigger fights of late. Domestic dust-up, stuff like that. So he's been boxing on a good platform as well, Sky Sports. And he has always done really well. He's a really good fighter, of course, one of the best we have at cruiserweight. As for Isaac Chamberlain, I've said it so many times, he's a friend of the show. I used to be quite close with Isaac back in the day. I don't really speak to him anymore these days. But I thought he would beat Lawrence Okoli all those years ago. He lost to Okoli, then absolutely disappeared off the face of the earth. He moved around location-wise. He, I think, trained with a couple different guys. Then he signed with Mick Hennessy, and he was going to be on Channel 5, and it's been very kind of hit and miss since then. He's been very inactive, but the times he has fought, he's looked quite good. But no one's really speaking about him. So he does have all the tools to beat Chris Smith, to be honest. I know he can do it. He does have the talent. We've heard about the sparring stories back in the day with the likes of Deontay Wilder. We've heard about other sparring stories as well with Isaac Chamberlain. The problem is, though, the lack of actual activity under the bright lights is something that could potentially come to bite him in his backside. Chris Smith, on the other hand, good jab, strong, good power, and he's been active lately. He's been in the fights that I think prove that you're at a certain level, whereas Isaac Chamberlain, we've heard about it. When he had his chance against Okoli, he was dreadful. I think he wouldn't mind me saying so. He was dreadful that night there. Since then, though, he has looked good. He has looked like something's changed. Maybe something's clicked finally. But we're going to need to see it all come out on Saturday night. He needs to be at his best to beat Chris Smith, because if he beats him, all of a sudden he almost becomes a star overnight again, and he can say, hey, the only guy I lost to right now is probably the best cruiserweight in the world in Lawrence Okoli. And if he loses, though, to Chris Smith, I don't know where he finds himself. He's in a really dark place again. So I don't want to see that happen. I hope Isaac can pull off the win in Bournemouth in front of Chris Smith's home crowd. It's a big fight to bring to Bournemouth in front of his home crowd, so he's going to have to be on his A game. Isaac Chamberlain. Moving out now, though, to the Virtue Motors Arena in Newcastle, Tyne and Wear. This one's going to be on Channel 5. Friend of the show, Josh Kelly, 11-1 with a draw. He gets in over 10 rounds for the WBO International Super Welterweight title against Lucas Brian Bastida, who I think is an Argentinian fighter. 18-1 with a draw. I think he got knocked out in that one loss, so it's going to be interesting. I think the bookies are expecting Josh Kelly to not get him out of there. They think he's going to win on points. On the undercard, friend of the show, Harlem Eubank, 14-0. Over 10 rounds, he gets in with Elliot Chavez, who is a Mexican fighter, 11-4 with a draw. However, his record's not the prettiest, but he's ranked quite highly at super lightweight. I think they think he's like, according to BoxRec anyway, I don't know if that means anything, but I think he's ranked as like the 5th best super lightweight fighter in Mexico. So that's quite, it's quite a big thing there. Elsewhere on the card, Pat McCormack, 1-0, gets in with Dimitri Trenel, who's 8-1. That's at super welter. That's about it really for that one. Moving out to the final card to mention, it takes place at the Barclays Center, Brooklyn, New York, USA. It's going to be live on Showtime, Eddie. I'm going to start with the undercard, and then I'm just going to come to you, and you can say whatever you like. We have Vito Mielnicki Jr., who is 11-1. He gets in with Jimmy Williams, who's 18-8 with 2 draws. That's over 8 rounds there at super welterweight. We also have Sergei Derevianchenko, 13-4 these days. The middleweight that just threw himself in the deep end constantly. Obviously looks like he's been on the slide, to be honest, for a couple of years. I think he's lost 4 of his last 5 fights, but still, they've all been against really, really tough opposition, like Danny Jacobs, like Gennady Golovkin, and I can't even remember the other guys, to be honest with you. But anyway, he gets in with Joshua Conley, who's 17-3 with a draw. That's over 10 rounds there. Elsewhere on the card, we have Gary Antoine Russell, who's 15-0 with 15 KOs. That's the Gary Russell brother that we really enjoy watching, myself and you, Eddie. He's 15-0, like I say, in a 10-rounder there against Rancis Barthelemy, the Cuban, who once upon a time was probably the best fighter in his division. 29-1 with a draw. Didn't get stopped in that one loss. Can Gary Russell do something spectacular here and extend that knockout streak again against a fighter of this caliber? It's massive on paper, this step up, I guess, really. Elsewhere, we have Adam Kaunaki, 20-2. Can he get back to winning ways? He gets in with Ali Aaron Demirizan. That's the guy who's 16-1, was a really good amateur, but lost a fight to Efia Jagba as a pro. I can't remember if it was a close fight now, but I think it's a stiff test for Kaunaki, because obviously Demirizan's got the amateur pedigree, and Kaunaki he got exposed a little bit against Hellenius. It'd be interesting, that fight. I think it's going to be really good. I don't think it goes the distance. And then the main event, Danny Garcia, 36-3, making his debut at super welterweight, a division I can't quite believe I'm seeing him fight at. He gets in with Jose Benavidez Jr., 27-1 with a draw. His claim to fame is that he is the brother of David Benavidez, and he's also got a little bit of a claim to fame because he almost didn't get knocked out when he took on Terence Crawford at welterweight, because Crawford's knocked out everyone he's fought at welterweight, and Benavidez made it to the 12th and final round before getting stopped. Other than that, you know, he's a good fighter. I shouldn't say these things like he hasn't done anything himself that's impressive. He is a good fighter. I don't expect this one to end early. I think it goes late. I think it actually goes to points. Just not really bothered about Danny Garcia's career and haven't been for a few years. You know, I credit him. He's tough. He's a decent fighter, but he's another one of those guys that, for me, doesn't really do anything spectacular. He just does the basics well. I thought he lost a couple fights at 140, moved up to 147. Obviously, lost the biggest fights of his career there against the likes of, who did he lose to again? He lost to Keith Thurman. He lost to Sean Porter. Who else did he lose to? Did he get the Crawford fight? No, he didn't get the Crawford fight, did he? Who did he lose to? He
lost to Spence.
There we go. And then, now he finds himself up at 154. I've been disinterested, like I say, for probably about, it sounds really harsh, but probably for about 5 years in Danny Garcia's career, and I'm not that bothered about this fight here. If anything, I kind of want to see Jose Benavidez do something here. It's his opportunity as well to get back in the mix. Eddie, there you go. It's a lot of names there, like I say, from Derevianchenko to Danny Garcia, Adam Kalnacki, Gary Antoine Russell with the 100% knockout ratio. Where do you want to start with all these names here?
Well, first start with Gary Antoine Russell. I mean, you and I both do not kind of, but like to watch him. He's an exciting fighter, talented. You know what I mean? Even his brothers say I think he's the best one of them all. And he has that attitude and that confidence. I don't know if he's gonna be able to get the stoppage here. And honestly, I'm not the biggest fan of the guy he's fighting. He has like a weird looking style. Doesn't necessarily mean it's not effective, but I just think he has the ability to do it. Now, granted, this guy has pedigree. He's been there. He's been one of the best guys in the division. So in his division. So I don't know. It's one of those things. I would like to see Gary Antoine Russell do great things and continue to get better and improve his position. And I think he will do that in this. I'm not sure about the stoppage though. I gotta agree with that. Guy's tough. So we'll see. As far as Kalnacki, it's kind of messed up, in the situation, especially at heavyweight. The good thing about heavyweight though is that you're only one fight away, especially once you get to a certain level, especially the level he got. So he has an opportunity at this time to, if he wins this fight, looks good in doing it like he has in the past, he'll have a shot at getting back into the upper echelon and putting himself back on track. But if he struggles and maybe gets like one of those gift decisions that we all see every once in a while, or anything like that where he doesn't look good, then, it could be the beginning of the end for him, depending on, who he fights, after. And then on to the main event, Jose Benavidez and Danny. I've been knowing Danny since he was a kid. He has the ability. I remember seeing him box when he was young. And believe it or not, him showing a high level of boxing skills before he showed the power and just the toughness and all that. He was kind of on the brink at the time. I'm, seeing him like figuring it out. And I guess after a while, he started to go to different places. He, started traveling the world fighting when he was an amateur, and then just all of a sudden became one of the better guys. So, and then upon turning pro, I felt like he took a step back and focusing on skill-wise what he needs to do to improve and improving his skills, and started focusing so much more on the power and toughness, which that's a good thing as a pro because it can set you apart. But I feel like you need to have something to fall back on, and he does have the pedigree. You know what I mean? But he has taken somewhat of a slide, and I think it's because Danny he stands and watches a lot. He waits, I think, on the perfect opportunity to land shots. And it's kind of bit him in the ass a little bit. Excuse my French. But it kind of bit him in the ass a little. And I think he needs to be a little bit more on the gas and listen to me saying the same thing that I need to be doing. But he needs to be, I think, a little bit more on the gas. I think he needs to stop trying to, create a perfect situation, especially going to a division up at 154 that he's never been before. Granted, it's only a few pounds north, but we all know that those few pounds could be like the straw that broke Campbell's back. So this might be a situation where it could be a little bit too much for him if he's not able to utilize what skills he has developed and be a little busier, because it's not going to be as easy to hurt people at these heavier weights. So if I see him in there throwing more punches, behind the jab a bit, getting inside, landing the big shots in combination, I'll be a little more confident to see that he possibly can have a good, possibly fourth quarter to his career. But other than that, we'll kind of see what happens going toward the end of his career now. But I wish him luck.
Yeah, we shall see. I mean, I wish the guy luck. I just think, obviously, being in that 154 division, the only man with a title, the undisputed champion, Jermell Charlo, I don't know if he's looking at moving up to 160. If he is, then I can understand why Danny might be thinking he can make a splash in that division, and maybe he actually could if he were to vacate the belts, Charlo. But I don't think there's been any talk of that, and if he holds on to the belts, I don't really fancy Danny's chances in that fight. So at the minute, there's nothing really there for him, I don't think, and I just think he's kind of riding out the last few paydays he has. But that's just my opinion. I could be awfully wrong, and I am wrong a lot. Anyway, that is it though for the preview part of the show. In part one, we did the review part. We welcomed our special guest, David Diaz. In part two, we did the news part. We've just wrapped up the preview part there. The final thing for me to do is to come in with the outro, which I'll do in just a few seconds. Okay, and this wraps up episode 354 of the BoxHard Podcast. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Eddie Chambers has been with me for the duration of the show. A huge thank you to our special guest, the former WBC Lightweight World Champion, David Diaz. The biggest thanks of all, though, goes out to you, the listeners. That's about everything from myself, though. Enjoy your weekends, people. Stay safe, and we shall see you all again next week.